Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Good to be here.
All right. Thank you. As we're running this marathon, we've had a lot of great material, and these are always fun, right? We get away from the slides and have a live conversation. So I like this at the end because it gets me out of slide mode. So perfect. Our discussion today, gents, is about questions surrounding digital transformation in the manufacturing industry, and I really can't think of a finer panel than what we have here. I've worked with each of you, and manufacturing is a definite strong point for you guys. So I think we've aligned a tremendous group. So question and answer session. I'll ask, you answer. Simple as that. And maybe just to kind of kick off the discussion, why don't we start with the challenges? What do you think the biggest challenges are for digital transformation within the manufacturing industry? And maybe I'll go top to bottom here. I'll direct that one at Jason first.
I think a lot of times manufacturers don't think of the back end, right? They're very much focused on the operational piece of being able to put their product or service out to the market, right? So they're very much focused on their day-to-day job. So when it comes to this digital innovation, right, thinking about how they can streamline their operations, whether it's customer engagement, digital marketing, if they're in the B2B space, in the sales arena, how they can use some of the newer technologies to really drive valuable insights into how their products or services are being used, how they're being distributed, changes in customer demand. I think that's really the big thing that I've seen with our customers is getting them to shift that mindset from their day-to-day operations of delivering the product and service and looking for other ways to transform their business and help them grow.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Before I jump into Ashok, we also have a poll going in the background right now. We've asked, what is the biggest digital transformation challenge in your organization right now? And as we speak, we're at a dead tie between lack of knowledgeable, staff and innovation costs, right? And that keeps going back and forth between each other. So we'll keep an eye on that as more votes come in. But Ashok, what are your thoughts on the challenges that manufacturers are having today?
First of all, Eric, thank you for inviting us. I lose track of how many times you and I team up on these events.
It's true.
It's amazing. Manufacturing industry, as we know, has been evolving slowly, but now they're catching up rapidly. They really need to move fast compared to financial services and healthcare. We've seen a massive transformation just in the last 12 months. Manufacturing, there's a whole operational efficiency that digitalization could drive, but you also have the application side, the customer experience side, whether it's internal or end customer. So how do you shorten the manufacturing timeline? How do you bring the industrial IoT to increase quality of the production, which results in higher efficiency? I also saw some of the apparel manufacturers like Calvin Klein's of the world trying to reduce the manufacturing timeline to be almost instantaneous. So you go online, you customize your garment, you click a button, and you get it within 3 days. So how do you do that? So I think digitalization is a must. It's not an option for them. They can leverage a lot of capabilities to accelerate, and this is where I think low-code solution comes into the place. You don't take 6 months, 12 months to design a solution. You do it in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I think there's a lot of opportunities. I see a great potential for them on all the challenges they're seeing.
Wonderful. And before we move to you, Basil, we've got the finalized numbers. Lack of knowledgeable staff came in first, and innovation costs came in tied with outdated infrastructure. So, these are all great points. These are challenges that, we're seeing as we're talking to customers. Basil, what are your thoughts?
In addition to the comments from my colleagues here, I would say there's 3 other areas that I would put somewhat of an emphasis on, and it's customer sophistication customers don't know what they don't know. So they don't know necessarily 100% proactively or reactively what exactly they need to put in until someone gives them the information that there's a disparity or a gap in what they're doing. So that's the first thing that I like to focus on. The other one is infrastructure and processes. How rigid is their infrastructure? How willing is the infrastructure willing to change to make progress towards all the things like Ashok was mentioning a little bit ago, lead times, shortening the manufacturing cycle, things of that nature. And then the last one that comes to mind is just employees in general, pushback and adoption. People don't like change, and people don't like their cheese being moved. So how can you tailor your culture, or how can you adapt some of your processes and pressure points within your organization to make sure that this change that you're going to be pushing them through is going to be easily adapted and a little bit easier to kind of accommodate into what they're doing today.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Basil. We look at that transformational effort, and you really have to have that culture ingrained, right? And it has to be driven from both sides. That's the common theme that we've heard, throughout the marathon, right? Where does that strategy begin? Is it a top-down strategy? Is it a bottom-up strategy? I think that it's a combination of everything. We have to make that a culture, right? It's not just things being pushed down or driven by the wants and needs of the frontline workers, but it's really that collaboration that's going to make a transformation a success. So excellent. So we'll shift gears from the challenges, and let's start to take a look at trends. And we want to see what trends are emerging in the manufacturing industry right now. And I've kind of pulled up my notes because we had a prior session where our colleagues mentioned, previously, 4 major trends for manufacturing, and kind of just to remind you and the audience, they were selling to direct customers, omni-channel lead generation, increased automation, and data-driven decisions. Do you guys think that these are the most impactful ones, or do you see other trends? And we'll go round robin here, starting from Jason again.
Yeah, I think it's all of those, and a lot of those have some underpinnings that feed into all of them, and especially the data-driven decisions. And as Ashok mentioned, companies really focusing on trying to get more out of Industry 4.0 and the IoT space. As we look at customer behaviors changing, we also have to look at how our technology and our processes change to be able to align with those changing customer expectations. That's where that feeds directly into whether it's omni-channel sales, direct to consumer sales. It's all changing. As we've seen over the last 18, 24 months, everything we thought we knew about manufacturing really changed in a lot of ways. So it's the basics of being able to create a good service and get it to the market, but it's how do we do it? How do we engage with the people that are using those goods and services that has really changed? And having the flexibility that is coming from both Industry 4.0 technologies and low-code platforms, it's enabled customers to be able to make that shift on the fly without taking that massive lead time, as Ashok mentioned before.
Perfect. And Ashok, what are your thoughts on the trends?
Just following on Jason's thoughts, for me, I think it's a direct to customer is leading the behavior. So if you just see the effect of pandemic in the last 12 or so months, there's been a huge shift from going to big restaurants or ordering from eBay or Amazon to really ordering it from the manufacturers, whether it's a food, whether it's clothes, whether it's electronics. And we are seeing big brands, even celebrity-funded brands are now going direct. Even, and I have a lovely lab, and I'm ordering food directly from the pet food manufacturer now, because they customize the pellets based on the age of the dog, and it changes it automatically. So I think this evolving really fast. So the omni-channel, all those things, automations are part of that. That's how they enable the direct to customer. Direct to customer means you have more loyalty for the brand. You control how much you can deliver, what value you can deliver to the customer. But underpinning all of those is the technology trend we are seeing that has already done amazing deliver solutions for healthcare, financial services, and so on. But I mean, manufacturing, it's huge. It's a large-scale operation. It's not that easy. You can't just change within 6 months. I think change management, as Basil said, is a crucial one. If you don't get that right, a lot of the CIO I speak to across various industries, of course, cybersecurity, all those things are important, but change is the biggest concern because they just can't control it, and that's the biggest challenge. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah. Yep. Basil, I just before you chime in, we're getting a lot of comments on your background in the chat. Everybody loves it, so just wanted to let you know.
Thank you very much. Just for everyone in the audience, this is not a testament to my artistic capabilities whatsoever. It really only speaks to my ability to see well-curated ads and impulse buy.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on the trends that both Jason and Ashok have mentioned? Do you have additional thoughts, or?
I definitely think that they've covered the general basis. What I would add to the conversation, in addition to what they've already kind of brought up in their own rights and what they're seeing in their respective areas, is that there's also a level of enablement from the perspective of the customer enablement and also employee enablement. Change management plays a factor in both of those, because if you change how customers do business with you, that's going to be a change that they have to adapt to. And if you disrupt something that's successful, you want to make sure that you disrupt it in a positive way, not necessarily just changing it for the fact of changing it. So I think enablement is another thing to take into consideration. And going back to the element of culture, all these trends that we're talking about, how each company necessarily approaches each of these individual trends or topics will vary from organization to organization. It's not so cookie cutter as people like to assume.
Yep. Great points as well, right? And one other thing, just around trends and kind of technology. Another question that is part of our discussion today is cloud manufacturing software a big part of the manufacturing industry transformation already, or is this just kind of an emerging trend that we're seeing today?
I would comment that it's been an emerging trend for a while and gradually picking up steam. When COVID hit, I think it exacerbated the need for people to put these tools into place. They kind of resisted the change because it was such a drastic shift from having everything, in a place where they can reach out and touch their data on a regular basis. They can pet their servers, tuck it in at night, and read a bedtime story, so on and so forth. But with cloud technology, it's a major disruption on that level of ownership and that level of care that they feel that comes along with on-premises software. But cloud technology is by far becoming a very leading requirement almost for organizations to truly have that access from anywhere and on demand at all times.
Yeah, and I think and I hate always bringing this up because hopefully we're moving away from this period in our lives. But man, the pandemic really accelerated that process, right? Digital cloud technologies probably were on the roadmap somewhere, but they had to make that shift very, very quickly. What may have been a 3 to 5 year roadmap has turned into we got to make that happen right now. Ashok, what are your thoughts?
For me, the term that I think is adaptability. So if you do not have cloud solution, how would you adapt to environment changing right under your feet, right? So if I have the traditional SAP apps or some massive ERP on-prem type of solutions, and here comes the industry change, suddenly I got to shift my gears and do massive changes. Organization needs to change, people need to change, and I don't have 24 months to do it. So the good thing about cloud is it's an on-demand solution. You can tweak it, you can increase the capacity, decrease the capacity without having to worry about data centers and all the complex problems I'm sure all of us have dealt with in our life. So I almost change the question saying, if you're not in the cloud software, how are you going to survive? It's a paradigm shift question for the CIOs and the CEOs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and agility, to your point, Ashok, agility is crucial now. more agile the company, the quicker they're able to adapt to change and kind of fit in right with that trend, the more successful that company ends up being just by, by nature of adapting to those agile platforms.
I think the other thing to think about too, when we talk about manufacturing software, I think there are certain things that also lead naturally to being in the cloud. There are other things that don't, right? MES systems obviously are going to be very, very close to the lines as you think about manufacturing. But things like planning, other processes in and around, whether that's order intake, order to cash processes, those things that still are part of the manufacturing environment, those things lend very naturally to the cloud. So I think it's something to say manufacturing systems moving to the cloud, some yes, some no. As solutions become more and more edge centric, right? So call it a fog layer, very close in the cloud, but very close and connected to these MES systems, whether it's through natural SCADA connections or other like Rockwell or Siemens, right? They're starting to expose more and more APIs so edge solutions can connect with them. So as those manufacturers allow their systems to have more connectivity, and that's part of the Industry 4.0 transformation. But as they allow that connectivity to expand, so can the movement of these cloud platforms expand within the manufacturing space. So certain things lend naturally to it, some things don't, I guess would be the thing that I'd want to add there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that we talk, we're on the low code marathon, so we got to talk about low code eventually here, right? So when we're looking at low code for the manufacturing industry, we tend to think about how that's going to help them streamline their processes, become more efficient. But one of the questions that is always posed is can low code help manufacturers grow? I have a thought on this because when you streamline processes, obviously you're going to be able to do things more efficiently, therefore helping you to grow. But where do you think the focus is for low code? Do you think it's streamlining those processes in based on efficiency, or do you think that that's actually going to help an organization grow? That's something that our audience wants to know.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things, and this is whenever I take Creatio to the market to customers, and whether it's B2B or B2C, I've got a great slide that clearly talks about key areas that you can automate. And this is kind of the BPM side of it, right? So whether it's in the corporate services, the HR, the internal support, employee onboarding, right? That can help. Or if you're in the customer service realm or the order to cash, procurement, all of these are areas where you can use low-code platforms to help automate these processes. And that's why something like Studio it just empowers things faster than any other thing that I've ever used. And we do a lot of different other technologies too, but it's just one of those things, because it has the unified platform for the CRM as well as the BPM. It's just amazing how fast I can go into a customer and start implementing things and just quickly hit these low-hanging fruit, and it's just like boom, 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 boom. You're starting to check things off of the I need list very quickly, and it just immediately starts showing value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ashok, Basil, what do you think as well? What are your opinions?
I think as Jason said, in the manufacturing process, there are a lot of workflows involved, a lot of coordination involved between various manufacturing systems. There's touch points, internal customers, but also a lot of third-party suppliers in distributing the products, etc. So what we traditionally take many months to build these solutions on .NET or Java framework, whether it's cloud or on-prem, they take time because you got to design the requirement, you got to build the prototype, you go through the application development process. It's mostly IT-led, internal IT-led, even if you bring third-party suppliers, and then you bring the business to validate, etc. It's a long life cycle. What we are seeing with Creatio low code is you go to the business and tell them, here is what we could automate your workflow, as simple as a claims management or a order from your distributors in various countries. And we are able to design the application within 3 to 5 days. Sometimes we use a discovery demo technique where we demo, find the requirements, we demo, and so on. On the 5th day, we got the requirements mapped up in the application. And it's the business who's seeing it, and they're happy to proceed. And within 2 to 3 weeks, application is up and running. The suppliers come in, they start to use it. So it's a speed, agility, but also it's the stakeholders who are involved in designing it. It's not the traditional, I go to IT, give the specification and come back. I think that is a real power. That's what Catherine keeps saying, right? It's a speed, it's the minutes, the hours, and the days. In terms of manufacturing processes, anything that requires handoff, workflow, exchanging information, providing data analytics, visualizing the data to drive behavioral changes, I think low code is a good fit for that.
Absolutely. And to your point, Ashok, whenever you've got key stakeholders involved in the building of the processes, when it's coming to digital transformation around those processes within the manufacturing process, you've got more adoption. And when you've got more key stakeholders involved, from people that are actually going to be the ones that execute the tasks or the processes, you have a very good idea of what's going to work well versus what's not. So you're able to kind of mold the way that you're approaching this low code technology and its application to the processes. Does the people within your organization, or do the people within your organization require something as simple as a button that they click to move it from one step of the manufacturing process to the next? That's where low code can really do a lot of the heavy lifting, because if it's a standardized move from one step in the process to the next, one button click, and we've already progressed it, executed several automated actions within the process, and you've got a larger uptick in adoption rate because people are seeing just how useful the low code element is. And also from an ownership perspective, they've had contribution to what it looks like, what it's shaped, what it's formed to within the organization. So they've got much more reason to adopt it rather than resist it.
I think one other thing I want to bring up, Eric, and this is a real life example. We've got a lot of manufacturing folks on here today, but we found a use case at one of our clients where they had kind of a central quality and issue management. So think of incident and case management. Low code allowed us to deploy a quality and issue management system linked up with the WMS for centralized, call it disposition, right? So warehouse one or manufacturing center one finds a quality problem with a part. They can immediately, through easily integrating with the WMS, look at inventory, understand the impact or potential impact of having that quality issue, and immediately dispatch people to do surveys, take photos, all of that real quickly. We were able to roll this out in a matter of weeks, where it took us almost 6 months to build it in another technology. That was something that when we took it to the client and said, look, we can do this in about 6 weeks, we completely transformed the way they looked at how to manage their quality and issue processes in their manufacturing world.
Yeah, a great example, and yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. So we're looking at it as a growth factor for organizations. You know, we work with a very large manufacturer, $4 billion manufacturer that has a quite intense quoting process, right? That takes it's very time consuming, from materials to design to supply chain, just to get the quote out to customers. And it was a very manual process. Well, by implementing low code, design throughout their organization, they were able to lower the time it took to quote by 30%. So when we're talking about growth, if you can get 30% more quotes out, that's going to have an effect on your bottom line. So I think we're all in agreement. Yeah, low code can help grow, manufacturers grow. I'd like to engage the audience a little bit, if I may. I'm going to ask another poll question here, and the poll question is: do you embrace low code development in your organization? And we'll watch that poll and check on the results momentarily. And as we do that, I'm going to, again, shift gears a bit and talk a little bit about big data analysis, right? And predictive maintenance in manufacturing. What do you think about the increasing attention around these two subjects? At this point, I'm just going to let you guys jump in anywhere. Whoever gets to the table, it's like a jump ball. I throw it in the air. Whoever swats it down gets it.
I'll throw the big one out there, which is, I think if companies aren't thinking about predictive maintenance by now, they've already missed the ball. Because anytime, and anybody who's worked in manufacturing knows, anytime your line goes down, you are losing money. So anything you can do to prevent that line from going down, whether it's through predictive maintenance, whether it's through foreseeable changes that you need to make so you can shift lines around, any of those things it means more product going through your line and more product ultimately getting out to customers. So I'll kind of stop there, but Basil and Ashok, and you guys know just as well as anybody, customers cannot stand to have their lines go down. I used to work on the manufacturing side, and every time it went down for any reason, whether it was product shortage, maintenance, whatever, you had the ops manager out there banging at your door going, get this line back up.
I read an interesting case study a month ago. One of the large manufacturers had a problem. Every time the needle breaks in their sewing process, the factory has to shut down for an hour because when it falls, it shatters. So they got to clean all the parts before they can restart. So they added a sensor which can proactively tell when it's going to break. So all it took was 1 minute to replace it. So just brought it from 1 hour to 1 minute. Yeah, I agree. But I think predictive maintenance, yes, I totally agree that the companies really must do it. But the big data analytics also equally very important because it highlights where there are process issues, where there are bottlenecks, and use the data to drive more growth or efficiency. And we see this quite a lot in other sectors, as I mentioned, because we cut across multiple industries. So we are seeing financial services really far ahead on the big data analytics. Healthcare is coming close. They've been working on it. I think manufacturing industry, some companies do it really great, but in my experience, 60 to 70% are still trying to get their arms around. It could be the first polls showed, right, 38% of the audience are saying lack of knowledge staff is the key issue. That could be a contributor. The data-led business, we know they do a lot better than others. So yeah, totally agree.
Mm-hmm. And to carry on that as well, I mean, when you're talking about predictive maintenance and big data just in general, predictive maintenance can make or break whether or not someone's throwing a gasket, and it also extends beyond the actual machines that keep the lines going too. I mean, you can install predictive and then replace maintenance with just being predictive in general. Systems exist to give information, and as long as you understand your business and what elements affect the uptime of your lines, that really is what you need to have visibility of. So that goes all the way back to supply chain even, and being predictive around that. ERPs and MRPs can give you that insight, but realistically, if you have another system that can be a little bit more predictive in just minimum stock levels, for example, that really does allow the prevention of this, because you can forecast demand in one system and see how it's going to flow and impact your production lines as well. And big data, it's kind of humorous to see people about how they interact with big data, because they look at it and like, yeah, all this stuff. Well, what do I do with it? and then big data is really great, but you have to know what you're going to do with it, because if it's just there for the sake of being there, I mean, you might as well just have a nice large digital paperweight sitting there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's that I would agree with that. The biggest challenge is, it's not the data. It's not a data challenge. It's how do you make that actionable, right? And that's where I think people, kind of get lost. So, Perfect. So we got our results of the poll. We have in the lead, yes, we are embracing low-code development in their organization. That's at 40, a little north of 41%. We have another 30% at yes, we have positive results, and that is tied with no, not yet. Audience, you have three gentlemen on the call here that would love to talk to you about low code. So, hit them up, and we'll make sure that we we get you in contact. Perfect. So I think we're coming up on time. So let me take just a kind of a couple of questions here from the audience, and we can wrap up our session here, guys. So the first question I have is, what defines whether digital transformation would be successful for the company or not?
Oh man, that is such an ambiguous question. I feel like that really depends on the KPIs, the initiatives of the organization as well. I mean, we had this conversation, I think, in one of the last sessions that we did around digital transformation in general, which is, the success of a digital transformation should be based off of factors defined by the organization. So where are your pain points? What exactly are you trying to undergo digital transformation to achieve? And then how you can kind of back into how you measure that. And if you don't even know the topics that you're trying to solve for digital transformation, that's your first barrier that you have to overcome. What exactly does digital transformation mean? It can't just be this cutesy thing that you hear as a buzzword and you're like, yeah, that's what we're going to do. You need to really embrace a strategy and a planning schedule, steering committee of what exactly that means, and then start building actionable items around that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I immediately went back to our last conversation as well, Basil. Focus on the outcome, right? That's gonna determine the success of your transformation effort or not. So, Jason, Ashok, there you go.
I'll keep it short. Just want to add. Usually, what I've seen is digital transformation is a board agenda because it requires capital and it requires executive sponsorship. So, board has to define. Yes, we are going to do this over the next 3 to 5 years. Here is the ROI we are expecting. Here is the investment we are going to commit. And here is the executive at the board level who will be responsible for driving it. And then the outcome is measured based on hitting the ROI, right? And it's less to do with technology. It's more to do with business change. So you might want to shift your manufacturing from a highly integrated to decoupled, decentralized, so they can be a lot more agile. So there can be a lot of parameters. But it's usually board has to commit. If your board doesn't commit, it really won't work. That's what I think.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I definitely agree as well. Yeah, that's almost a cultural thing as well. Mm-hmm. The culture of the company, it has to be enforced from the top down. They're the ones that set the standard and the expectation.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Great point. Great point. Do we have time for one more? Where are we at? I don't see any red lights flashing yet, so we got time for one more. So let me. Does privacy play a vital role in the reluctance to change at both the human and organizational levels? So again, does privacy play a vital role in that reluctance to change?
I think some companies are reluctant, especially in the banking financial sector. They're very concerned about having customer information where they can't control it. I think that the last 5 to 10 years in moving, especially things like CRM systems to the cloud, companies have gotten more used to it or more accustomed to it. You look and Ashok, you work more in the banking financial space than we do, but I know even if you think about claims and policy admin, right, there's just no way insurance companies are going to ever put that stuff on the cloud. They don't want the risk of that sitting out there. That being said, especially in the manufacturing space, I think that companies are a little more less hesitant to be able to move to the cloud. I do think that they struggle with what to move and when to move. But companies have gotten really good, cloud providers have gotten really good about ensuring that they're SOC compliant and ensuring that they have PCI compliance. So most of those concerns, I think, have been addressed adequately enough over the last 5 to 10 years that companies' hesitancy has come down.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I would piggyback on top of that, saying that the understanding of what exact privacy standards exist with each individual cloud platform, the lack of knowledge or the lack of foresight to even ask the question, that's definitely something that if you proactively breach that topic with the individual customer, typically they're a lot more put at ease by that concept and making that migration to the cloud. You're eliminating that barrier very quickly.
Yeah, all I want to say is we are seeing even in an extremely sensitive industry, even public sector, government, etc., they are moving to the cloud, but in a more constrained cloud. If you don't mind, so there's a boundary around it. There are multiple boundaries before cyber attack could come through. So it's a matter of determining which aspect you can put it on the cloud, which you cannot, and you partition it, because you can have it's a hybrid solution is possible, right? Defining that. But other than that, privacy is common for all industries. You have to protect the data, you've got to have the process. But the good thing about manufacturing industries is highly process driven. So the audience know what process is, how to control it. They probably need more awareness and proven concept and proven framework to implement it, so you don't do trial and error.
Excellent. All right. Well, gentlemen, that brings us to time for our session. What a wonderful discussion. As always, just a phenomenal presence here on our session. As always, you guys never are short to deliver. So I really appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully we'll have a few more of these. Ashok, I know you and I will be doing something at some point in the near future. We're a team. We should keep, we should keep track of how many. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.